The problem with the Serpent Queen from STARZ, the TV show, is not that it is profoundly, historically inaccurate. For me, the frustration lies in the fact that they had an opportunity to show Catherine de Medici for who she really was. And I'm not saying that the whole show is completely bad. I think there are some moments where we see Catherine's vulnerability, where we see Catherine the woman, and I really love these moments. But what I'm very upset about is all the kind of myth around her dark legend that keep being perpetuated in these types of shows, when truly what we should be looking at is that the more historically accurate Catherine, she was not perfect, she made mistakes, but she was certainly not a Serpent Queen. I'm Dr. Estelle Paranque, and I'm an expert on Elizabeth I of England and the French during that time, and especially on Catherine de Medici. I spent 10 years researching the French manuscripts, looking at the letters of Catherine de Medici, looking at the letters of her contemporaries. And I can tell you, when this show gets it very wrong. So let's dive in. If you want a video on Catherine de Medici, the real Catherine de Medici, where I bust the myth around her dark legend, please check the description box because I will link the video I made on her. She's the Queen Mother of France. She's known for being the mother of 3 kings. She's known for being the Queen Consort of Henry II of France, but she's also known for being the niece of Pope Clement VII. Known as the Orphan of Florence because she lost both her parents very young. And she was used as a political pawn by her family members that remained alive. What's very interesting with Catherine de Medici is the fact that she was actually not meant to be queen. Her fate is absolutely extraordinary. From the Orphan of Florence, she became Queen Consort of France and then Queen Mother of France, a title that she created herself, for herself, trying to show and to hold on to the power and politics of France and trying to serve not only her country, but her dynasty. For Catherine de Medici, there's nothing more important than family, than her children, because she is the matriarch of her family, especially when her husband died in 1559. The truth is, Catherine de Medici suffered from lots of humiliations. And the biggest one was the fact that her husband, when she married him, so Henry, who was going to become Henry II, was in love with someone else who was 20 years older than them. They were both 13 when they got married. And he was in love with his tutor, Diane de Poitiers. This woman was very intelligent, but also very controlling, and she knew exactly what she was doing with Henry. There is this part of like the power balance of their relationship was not really right, because Diane was very much in control of the prince and then of the king. Their relationship was probably a love story, like when you look at the number of years that they spent together. Even though he had other mistresses, he always came back to Diane de Poitiers, and she remained the royal favorite, the royal, the royal mistress. And for Catherine, it is something she had to accept. It is basically a ménage à trois. The numbers of humiliation she had to endure during her life, with a constant humiliation from having Diane basically even more queen in many ways than she was, is something that she really never forgot. And that is something that the Serpent Queen, the show, shows quite well. The dynamic between the two women, the way Diane is kind of like trying to control Catherine as well. She's going to fail because Catherine is going to show at first obviously obedience, humiliation, because she knows how to play the game. But Catherine is underestimated from a very young age. People don't realize how smart she was, but also how power hungry she was. So what's very interesting is that we have a relationship where Diane de Poitiers is constantly humiliating Catherine, and she thinks that Catherine is just taking it, not realizing that you never know what's going to happen in life, and that maybe you should not treat people like that. And so here we have some scenes that are, I think, very powerful, and that's where I think the show did it well. It did kind of picture this relationship really well from the start.
I would like to be alone with my husband. Can you please leave us?
That was not the arrangement.
This scene is like magnificent because you have basically Henry choosing his mistress over his wife. This scene is like the embodiment of the humiliation that Catherine suffers. You see the woman, like here you see Catherine being completely crushed. You see Catherine being vulnerable. You see Catherine asking her husband to choose her. But also there's still a problem, don't you, that I think that the show didn't tackle well. And I think it's because they want to have Diane de Poitiers as this kind of magic and perfect woman who never ages. Because, you know, women who are perfect, they don't age. They just age gracefully, but you can barely see it. So when Catherine is young, they use the same actress. But when Catherine is getting older, they still use the same Diane de Poitiers actress, which is a bit confusing and a bit outraging as well, for like kind of what of stereotypes we want to feed the audience. And I think that the viewers deserve better. Clearly, even Catherine de Medici, you know, or Samantha Morton deserved better in many ways. But I think that this scene is the embodiment of what Catherine, the real Catherine, the historical Catherine suffered from, and I think it is well done. And you know, I just don't want to criticize this show for the sake of it. This is well done. When we need to criticize it, we will. Don't worry.
What can I say? I'm where I want to be.
What can I say? I'm where I want to be. Again, that is very clear. That's again very, the relationship is very clear. He doesn't want to be with Catherine. As his lover, he wants to be with Diane. And so here again, it is well done. But you can also understand the pain. Though there's something that they don't do really well is the fact that we see how crushed she is. But the truth is the historical Catherine never really, I mean, from the letters I read, never felt resentment towards Henry for behaving the way he did. And she truly loved him and truly was devoted to him until the end. She was the perfect devoted wife. The resentment was towards Diane, not Henry. And I think here we have kind of like, just with a facial expression, we kind of have like a bit of a doubt that it is turning her into someone dark, you know, like someone who's going to be built with resentment, when actually it's not actually how it happened. And definitely not, that resentment was definitely not towards Henry actually in the sources. Now maybe, you know, personally she might have felt a bit of resentment, bitterness, but we don't find it in any of the contemporary sources.
It is my daughter. I named her Diane after you, madame.
That scene is very interesting because Henry II went on a military campaign, and there he met someone and had a daughter with her, and he presented them to Diane and Catherine, and he's going to call that daughter, the baby, Diane, in honor of his mistress. So not Catherine, you know what I mean? And here it's quite... Again, it's done in a nice way because you can see that both women are a bit crushed by the news. Diane doesn't really feel, though, frightened so much. But here, it is nicely done because that's a turning point where she's going to try to help Catherine having children, because she realized that she doesn't really want Henry to have someone else that he could get really in love with. Like she wants him to stay with Catherine because she knows that they don't have that much of chemistry. So even if they have children together, she knows that Catherine is not a threat to a relationship with Henry. So that's quite a very interesting moment here. There's like, and I like the way it is done. I like the way, I mean, it is kind of hard, you know, breaking especially for Catherine. But I think that scene is quite well done. Though I think Henry, it plays a bit like this kind of boy that so immature, so inconsiderate. It's almost like, what do you see in him? Like, you know, and I think that for Catherine de Medici, who's so smart, they could have portrayed a better Henry, because he was actually very intelligent. He did stimulate her, like, intellectually, and we don't have that in the show, and I think it's a shame, and it's a missed opportunity. But let's not go down the road of missed opportunities, because there are so many with the Serpent Queen. Now, the things that are really appalling is the depiction of Mary Stewart, and it's missing that. It's completely ridiculous, and most of the storyline is just off, absolutely off, because it's just plainly wrong. And that's where the frustration builds up when you watch such a TV show, because especially for a historian who has dedicated 10 years of her life to, you know, Catherine de Medici, you really wanted her, you know, the spotlight to be on her. You know that there's this amazing actress who's going to play her. Honestly, the acting, I think, is fabulous in this show. I'm not criticizing. I think they're all absolutely amazing. It's the script again that kind of ruin the show.
Would you like to know how it ends?
It is ridiculous. Do you like to know how it ends? Like, it's not the end of Catherine. It's definitely not. It's the beginning of Catherine. So I think where the show ends is also kind of like ridiculous. They're missing a huge part of Catherine's life, a huge part of Catherine's rise. As what I discuss in my book, Blood, Fire and Gold, like, you know, when she becomes Queen Mother, when she acts as regent to her son Charles IX, who's 9 years old when he became king. I think here it's just a missed opportunity after a missed opportunity, and the whole thing is like trying to portray France as a kind of a chaotic country. I'm not saying it was not completely chaotic, but I think here they went kind of overboard, showing that, and really they get like everyone, like the worst part of what we know, their personalities, and they just made the whole character around that. So that's very problematic.
Sometimes it feels like I can make things happen if I want them badly enough.
This idea that Catherine de Medici poisoned her son Francis is absolutely ridiculous.
To offer our condolences, I cannot imagine what you're going through at this time.
Seems as if I am cursed to outlive those dearest to me.
And here, like when she says, "Oh, it looks like I'm cursed," or people who are around me are cursed. Maybe she would have felt that way because she lost everyone. You have to remember, with Catherine de Medici, she lost her parents when she was really young. Then she lost her aunts and she lost her grandmother, and then she's gonna lose her, you know, her uncle, Pope Clement VII, once he basically he sent her to France, and there's this feeling of like holding on to family members that is very strong with Catherine de Medici. For her family is absolutely everything. The idea that she's a poisoner is absolutely wrong, that she's a murderess, it's absolutely wrong. It comes from her dark legend, and the dark legend is stemmed from very xenophobic detractors who really hated her during her lifetime and after, and who basically blamed her for everything that went wrong in France, and they blamed also her sons. In many ways, it was a way for the Bourbon dynasty to kind of like position themselves as the savior of France. So they had to kind of like, you know, kind of destroy the Valois reputation, the Valois Angoulême, the Valois Orléans reputation. And that's where like Catherine really suffers. But it is not based on what she actually did. It's not based on primary sources. It's not based on what actually happened. And so it's so frustrating that now in the 21st century, with such an amazing opportunity, like someone wanted to create a show on Catherine de Medici, that we have to call it the Serpent Queen, and that we have to have these kind of myth repeated. I find it extremely hard to support or even to like.
Question of succession needs to be addressed.
What question? My second son, Charles IX, will be king when his brother dies.
Of course.
They discuss here the question of succession, and obviously Charles IX is the one who should become king, but he's 9 years old. Then they're going to discuss the regency. And you have these men, all these men, the Guises and the Bourbons and Catherine herself, who are all very interested. What I don't really like in that scene as well, like when you look at the show, it's like all this darkness kind of like showing, basically saying that's the dark legend of Catherine de Medici. Maybe they could have called it the dark legend of Catherine de Medici. Maybe less catching the Serpent Queen, but more accurate. But here also, like, at some point she's just, you know, you can see a bit, but who could do it? She plays dumb, and I'm not sure that it is true to Catherine. Though Catherine always tried to hide kind of her intelligence, she doesn't want people to understand how clever she is. I don't think she would have played that dumb with a little smile. I think it's not very convincing for me, as someone who has read so many letters from Catherine herself.
So now that you know, are you with me or against me?
Here we have a discussion, you know, about that apparently she did poison her son, and she's asking, are you with me or against me? It's absolutely ridiculous. She did not poison her son.
First, I want to know. You sacrificed your best friend, your husband, your son, for power?
No. For freedom.
This question, what did you do it for? Was it for power? And she replies, for freedom. And here we have a big problem. Because Catherine, though I like the fact that they didn't make her like, yeah, it's for power, for freedom doesn't work. And I'm going to explain why. Because the real Catherine de Medici, her freedom was through her motherhood, was through her sons and kings. And there was no interest for her to lose her family. You have to understand that someone who might have had some trauma by losing her family so young, she probably did not wish to lose her family. You know, her firstborn son. Do you realize what they're making her do? Like trying to kill, poison her son. She's responsible for it. That's absolutely insane. Also, we have a letter from her to Elizabeth of Valois, her first daughter, who was sent to Spain to become the wife of Philip II, where she really showed how heartbroken she is with the death of Francis, how lost she feels. And we have here this humanity. We have Catherine, the mother, the woman who's crushed. She's lost her firstborn son. She lost a king. And now she feels like she writes it down. She's like, now I'm the head of family. And she's scared. She knows they have lots of enemies. She doesn't know how she's going to try to manage everything. Obviously, it's also an opportunity for her to rise. But I don't want us to forget that Catherine lost her son. That Catherine, who had lost so many people she loved, continued to lose them. And it's very hard for her. Like, this letter is so moving that if you read it, you would never be able to believe this type of portrayal, because it just doesn't fit the bill. It just doesn't match the woman she was. The final episode of The Serpent Queen is probably one of the worst episodes of the whole series. Why? Because it's plainly wrong. Mary Stuart didn't order the execution of Protestants. She almost fainted when they were hanged in front of her, and Catherine de Medici gave her a very nasty look, saying that she should not be showing any sign of weakness. So definitely not happening here. It's not, you know, we're not very sure that the Bourbons, you know, Antoine de Bourbon and his brother Louis de Bourbon were involved in any of these uprisings. So I think here we have to remember that it was a very chaotic time. It was a very uncertain times. And so that's why it happened more than it was a real, the Amboise conspiracy, more than it was a real conspiracy. And here we have also this kind of representation of Mary of a crazy person where she cuts off like the finger of Louise of Bourbon. It's absolutely ridiculous. And then you have Catherine showing like she's completely like holding it together. They're basically both very bad. It's just, the representation is just so off in so many ways that it's quite painful to watch. We also have Catherine who stabbed Montmorency, absolutely never happened, absolutely ludicrous. And in the end, we have Montmorency seeing her and telling her, though you're basically this horrible person, you're the only one who can save France. And the TV show is going to end more or less on this, which is also ridiculous because the life of Catherine de Medici is obviously she wants to save France. And she's way more tolerant than people gave her credit for. You just have to look at her writing. I'm not saying she's a Protestant herself. Absolutely not. She's very strongly Catholic. Would she rather have no Protestant in her country? Of course she would not. But like, that was what Catholic people thought at the time. She's not very different on that front. But where she understood, like her sons, that if you want to rule a country, you need peace. If you have discord, you are vulnerable to foreign attacks, you just show weakness to all of Europe. So they were trying to have edicts of pacification, they were trying to find peace. And the reason they couldn't find peace was not because of the Protestants, it was mostly because of the ultra-Catholics led by the Guisist family of Mary Stuart. But was Mary Stuart exactly like them? I'm not entirely sure. I think that she kind of became like them towards her life, especially when she became a prisoner in England. I think like it kind of like make her tilt that way more and more. But she showed also very great understanding of how politics worked and how sometimes you had to show tolerance towards Protestantism. So I think here this whole kind of representation of these two women is just wrong. It's just plainly wrong. And the last episode is just a missed opportunity to really show what happened, to really show the struggle Catherine faced, the struggle that Mary Stuart faced at the time, and how their fates were kind of intertwined, and how Catherine then would be like, there can only be one queen in France, so you have to go back to Scotland. And here it is about power, not freedom, right? So like, it's quite interesting. So that's why my review on The Serpent Queen, I would honestly not really recommend it unless you want just to be plainly entertained. But I don't even find it that entertaining, if I'm honest with you. I find it very irritating. I think it was a great idea to want to do something like Catherine de Medici. And I think, unfortunately, it was a massive missed opportunity to do her justice. So that's why I felt extremely frustrated when I watched it. Disclaimer as well, I've been interviewed about the Smithsonian magazine on Catherine de Medici, link below, and I've also written a review for BBC History Extra magazine, link below as well. So, you know, it's something that I've been really aware of, and something that really matters to me, because I really wish we had a good portrayal on TV or on film about Catherine de Medici. So maybe one day, let's hope. Anyway, this is it for me. Thank you so much for watching this History Police video, and don't forget to check the other ones, and give a thumbs up if you liked it, and don't forget to subscribe. I'm so very grateful for all your support. Thank you so very much, and see you next time. Bye!